All right, so how do I get started? I take a big bristle brush, see that? In relation to the canvas, quite
Yes.
large. I
Yes.
prefer to use a round brush for this. And the first thing that I'm looking for are the largest possible shapes that can tell me something about my orientation in this surface. Now, for the purposes of this study, I'm going to ignore the second head. There's like a second head in the background. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not doing the second head. We're
Okay.
just going to focus on one head. So the distance from the edge of the frame is very, very important in being able to keep everything in proportion and make sure nothing gets cropped out. So first things I'm going to be doing is outlining distances from edges. So the head ends roughly here, mark, just a
Yeah.
simple mark. Now here on this side, this corner, if I'm squinting and I'm just looking at that green background, I have a triangle happening there. Do you see that triangle?
Yes.
Yes. If the reference is over there, do you want to grab it and keep it next to me so that you can see what I'm doing? If that's a movable document? Good, good. So here we have a green triangle, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make a simple mark. Boom, simple mark, green triangle. All right?
Yeah.
Now on the other side of the head, the hair comes all the way almost up until the edge of the frame, roughly over here, correct?
Yeah.
Roughly over here. And then we have a very simple geometric angle, like this. Boom. So far, so good. Very simple geometry, nothing complicated. Now I'm looking at the bottom. This light shirt kind of gets cropped out of the frame roughly here. There's about this distance over here.
Yes.
And then the shirt does something like, it has a V that looks roughly like this,
Yes.
like that, and like that. Notice how all I have here now are three big shapes. The shape of the background, roughly the shape of the shirt, and roughly the shape of like the head, plus the hair, plus the beard, plus this whole thing. I am starting with the biggest shapes imaginable, just so that I don't start with details. I want this whole frame to function properly on an abstract level. And you start from the large and you build towards the small. So right now, if you've done sculpting, I had a marble block and I just chiseled out, ding, 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 like I carved out those big unnecessary things out of my block, removed those backgrounds, and looking at those backgrounds as simple shapes is so much easier for me to get at the proportion of the figure, because otherwise, where am I going to start? Like, how am I going to get this to be in the right relationship to the frame? Super difficult. All right.
Yeah.
Next large shape that I'm identifying is the shape of this entire shadow plus the hair. It's like a very big shape, almost like the face plus the beard. The lighter areas is almost like an hourglass. I don't know if you can see it. Can you squint at the reference and see face plus beard like an hourglass?
Yes, but I didn't see that before. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm trying to teach you how to look at it to keep things simple. So like this, like that, then comes in, then goes out, then like that, like this. That's the hourglass, right? Like that. Something like this, the hourglass. Do you see that?
Yes.
On the reference, right?
Yep.
And then we have this going like that. There's a light part here in the hair that we're gonna kind of try to salvage as light, roughly like this. And then this light kind of goes like here. And then here, where the shoulder is, there's like a shadow, and then the hair kind of crosses into the shirt. I'm gonna block in all those darks and you'll see what I mean. So here we have dark, 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 dark. Very, very, very abstract at this point. Make sense so far?
It does, yeah.
And dark. very, very geometric. Like I'm not trying to get any details. I'm trying to get this thing to be in the correct proportion to the frame, to have all my components playing nice with each other. Now, if I manage to see something that is as impossible to paint as a human head, as a few simple geometric marks like hourglass next to pyramid, next to these kinds of things, I'm on the track to success, because the key skill that you need to get in order to paint something complex is to see it simply. If you can actually transform it in your mind into, oh my God, like this is just a few simple things coming together. It's like a recipe. If you have a recipe that's 200 pages, it's immediately like, I'm not cooking that. But if you only see one stage at a time, that's like, this stage is easy. This stage is easy. And before you know it, you have your cake or whatever it is you were going to make. We can't be overwhelmed by everything we see in the reference all at once. So I start by looking for the simplest imaginable things. All right? Now, my second move is I take another brush. And this brush, I'm not dipping into paint. I'm dipping it straight into solvent. And that's going to allow me to model and modify my light shapes a little bit. This doesn't work as well as I want. Let me just clean it from the paint. It needs to be pretty clean for it to work. There we go. See, so I'm able to erase and model these shapes, change what I made with my darks to make this shape more refined. So this hourglass needs to, oh God, this brush is not working. I'm gonna need another one. Okay, clean brush. What I'm doing now is, as I said, modifying the lights, using it to make it a little bit less, oh, there we go, less geometric, less schematic, more specific. And you notice that the amount of solvent I'm using is causing a whole chaotic thing here to happen. That's fine. Playing with it. Like clay. This is like clay. You keep everything flowing. Now here, if this is where the shirt is ending, then we have the shadow underneath the beard happening roughly here. Yes. Right? So we add that. So we have this shadow and then this strand of hair going like so. And the beard goes like so. And then here there's another strand of dark hair coming in from the other side. So I am spending time defining all those things that will inform me about the size of the face way before I'm actually making it into a face. Now I'm changing this geometrical structure into something that resembles a little bit what I'm seeing in my reference, making this a little bit wider, a little bit more flowy. It comes down a little bit lower, that triangle. So slowly you're going to notice how this is becoming less schematic and more natural looking. And I'm going back into these shapes. And when I go back to them, I start to, how do you say in English? What's the word? Like, what does a spy do when he's looking at tracks? Like he's kind of like looking for clues of
investigating.
Yeah, I'm investigating the relationship between these bigger abstract shapes. I'm trying to see, okay, this shape goes all the way up to here. Then we have a corresponding shape on the other side. How wide does this area need to be? Which of these tips is taller? It's like, oh, you know, this tip is taller. That's how we're getting this perspective of the face. And I'm slowly defining them. And by slowly, I mean quite quickly.
Not too slowly for you.
No, not too slow.
You might go a bit slower though.
No, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. And also, I might, you know, I'm actually doing it a little bit slower than I'm used to because it's quite possible that your materials are going to be misbehaving on us. So we might benefit more from making it a viewing party so that next time we could focus on your underpainting 100% with paint that's actually going to enable you to erase, because it looks like your paint is barely erasable, right?
Well, I wonder what that's going to be like.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So we see here the beard is part of the beard. The mustache is kind of part of the shadow. So there's like a connection here between the two sides of the face.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of finding where that is happening. See that? And then this connects to the dark shape, which is the shadow underneath the nose. So all this stuff is connecting. I'm not making any unnecessary separations. I want to make harmony. And harmony is all about finding similarities, not finding differences.
Okay, yeah.
See that? How I'm starting to build the shape of the face from all these very...
That's somebody he doesn't like. Give him a
It's
laugh.
okay, it's just Rubens. Don't worry about it. We're just making Rubens over here. See what I just did? Now, out of nothing, we're already starting to see the face. Do you notice that?
Yes.
Does it make sense so far?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
So the way that we've done this is you are trying to delay gratification. Delay gratification. Don't start by painting nose. Don't start by painting eye. You want to start by painting very large shapes and constantly ask yourself, what's the next big shape that I can work with? And if you do this properly, at the end of the day, the biggest shape that remains is the tiny eyelash in the eye. But that requires you to be very disciplined in making sure that before you arrive there, you first accomplish all the other shapes in the painting that are larger than the eyelash, which is 100% of the rest of the shapes. So the more you manage to stay disciplined and focus on the big shapes, the more you can paint loosely and have your painting be full of energy, be full of texture, be full of vitality, because we can't be full of those energies when we are trying to depict the tiny little detail, this kind of stuff. You can't. That nobody can paint energetically that way. So the way you charge up your painting with energy is you start bold, you start big, you start with big movements, you let them dry. Then the painting is charged up like a battery with all the energy from the underpainting, and every layer progressively is less energetic and more refined, but the energy from the beginning stays there.
Yes.
So it's very important to start that way. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And
Okay.
I'm going to bring up sculpture again, because that's where you get movement in a sculpture is from the armature.
Yes, yes. Good. So all this sculpture background is going to come in very handy. It looks like all the examples I'm giving make sense to you, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and what I think I wrote that in one of my messages to you was I do get bogged down in detail way too quickly if I'm drawing or anything like that.
The thing about details is they're the easiest thing, by default to fall in love with and to fall back on. But what we need to do in order to change this habit is to find a way to love this stage. For example, I love this stage so much that at this point, I wish that I had it in me to stop and not to make it into a figure. I love this on an abstract level. You have to love the beauty in abstract design so that you're not constantly drawn to the next stage and you find this stage to be boring. You want to enjoy the stage and get yourself to a mental standpoint at which you say, oh man, I should keep some of my underpaintings like this incomplete because they have their own beauty to them. Yeah. And that's what you're trying to achieve. Because this is, this is where the painting actually, how to explain this? Let me just, this is actually an important point, so I want to make sure that I'm not multitasking while I'm trying to explain it, because my multitasking ability has improved over the years, but it's still suboptimal. See, I'm changing things with this clean brush, with this eraser, changing that shape of the shirt, getting that composition to work. Okay, now what I was trying to explain is this stage before we are expressing anything figurative. This is the stage of composition, of how abstract shapes are coming together to populate a frame. You know what I mean? Now, this stage is so significant because when you go to a museum and you look at a painting from across the room and it calls out to you and you're like, what is that amazing painting? And then you walk up close, it takes you a minute and you're like, oh, it's a rabbit. But you didn't know it was a rabbit. You knew it was amazing before it was a rabbit. So what made it amazing? What made it amazing is this, the arrangement of abstract shapes in a frame. How a beautiful light triangle looks next to a beautiful dark trapezoid, whatever. All these abstract arrangements, at the end of the day, under every representational painting lives a good abstract painting. And if it doesn't live under there, then the representational painting is going to disappear on the gallery wall. On the gallery wall, the painting that cries out to you from among all the good realistic paintings that all look convincing in how they depict life, the ones that stand out are the ones that are also good abstract paintings. And that is so important to understand. And this, the underpainting stage, is where you have to nail the abstract design.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are many like classical atelier schools that only focus on the representational properties of the work. And they can render a human figure in a super persuasive way, and it looks, you know, really realistic, like it could wake up and leave the painting at any moment. But
Yeah.
you look at the composition, and there's nothing there. The painting is asleep. Nothing there is dramatic in the relationship between the lights and the darks, the way that it relates to the frame. The frame needs to be flawless so that you can't feel like you can move it left or right. Like this is the only way where it has to be. And if a painting doesn't achieve that, to me, it hurts. Because I like, you have so much technical prowess, but you're not being creative. You're not thinking about, how am I going to make a design? Like, are you an artist? What is going on with you? And, you know, it's coming from me. I'm a representational painter. Like, I paint classically, but the old masters did that every time. When you look at the big lines underneath a Titian painting, it always makes these beautiful diamond shapes and those crescent moons and all those like long flowy lines. They were all great abstract painters before abstract painting was even invented. And then when abstract painting was invented, it's like the figurative paintings fell asleep and they decided we don't have to worry about design anymore. No, we have to worry about design all the time. We cannot leave like that responsibility for the abstract painters. It's our responsibility too. The way I think about it is kind of like, you know, a salad comes together with good dressing, but alone a salad doesn't taste good and the dressing doesn't taste good. That's kind of like the abstract design and the realism. If they're not together, you don't have a working salad. Like this alone is gross and this alone is gross.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
All right.
It's obvious
I love that we're on the same page with this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep going on this thing. So now I'm gonna keep on refining the light shape over here a little bit. And I hope you don't mind watching, but it's
no, it's really
the best way for me to explain how this process is gonna have to work.
So are you just using your solvent here to push around?
Exactly. It's a clean brush. You see, the previous one I was trying to use for this purpose wasn't working, so I changed it. And the reason it wasn't working is because I used it for the same purpose in my previous lesson. And as it sat on my table while I was waiting to start your lesson, it just became so saturated with the dark paint that it wasn't clean enough to be shoving all this paint around anymore. So I had to grab a fresh one. But now this one is working perfectly for this purpose. So we're all happy-go-lucky. Now the shape of the nose ends roughly here. I'm going to try to block in the shape of the eye sockets. I'm not drawing an eye, I'm dabbing dark shadow. And when you try to see these things abstractly, it really, really helps to squint. Squint until all those details disappear. And you just see a dark general indication. Now this thing can move. I can shove it from the top to make that forehead as big as it needs to be. So if I make a mistake, everything's fluid, everything can move still. If I put them too high, no big deal. See, as long as there's no detail there, no big deal. I can move everything. And I want to check that angle between the eyes to make sure that it functions well. And then open up this cheek. See, I'm working with it just like clay, moving it around.
I'm thinking that precise thing, actually.
It's both additive and subtractive. Super dynamic, super loose.
So this is a stage you can go back and forth a little bit.
Pardon me?
This is at a stage where you can go back and forth.
Absolutely, 100%. I could never have done this if you gave me like a ballpoint pen. That would be a completely different mindset. The whole idea with oil paint is that because it dries slowly, it makes it possible for us to go back and forth. That's what we want from our oil paint. Otherwise, we would be working with acrylic. You know, this is the kind of stuff that acrylic cannot do. You know, acrylic has other benefits, which I would argue are not worth it, but it's like what we want from our oil painting is the ability to sit here for 3 minutes and ask ourselves, is it working? No, take it away. We need that. We need that. And this is supposed to be liberating for you because it means you can make all the mistakes in the world and nothing is going to be, you know, nothing's permanent. Nothing is going to hold you back from deciding, okay, I'm moving this now, and boom, you move it. No problem.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, it's kind of silly how, like, as a beginner, you go, oh my gosh, that's scary. Like, to do those big, bold.
Yeah, but why though?
But it's not. It shouldn't be. But it's, you know what I mean. It's sort of.
Especially since you can always make corrections. You can always make corrections. And let me tell you, big shapes are not as scary as small shapes. You know, the small shapes are way harder to paint.
Yeah.
And if you get the big shapes right, then the small shapes are going to have such an easy time falling into place. But if you just start by trying to paint the small shapes, like they're not going to be in the right place. There's just no way in hell. Like,
you've got nowhere to go.
I've gotten all of this to be where it needs to be on the canvas. Like, you need to be a magician. This is impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. He's already coming together.
Yeah, you know, and I'm keeping it loose, you know, just dabbing along, moving all the marks that I feel like should move, keeping my options open, you know, not committing to anything yet.
Yeah.
It's the relationship between all these shapes. It's really what makes this whole thing so dynamic. You notice what I'm doing now is like I'm treating these things as a rhythm. It's like bam, 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 bam. Like, how far are they away from each other? I don't know if you play music, but it's like how big this beat is, how far away are those two beats, how far away are they from the next dark beat. Every one of those punch lines has to be at a correct relationship to the other stuff. Like, I don't want to think about beard. I want to think dark accent, dark accent, dark accent. How far away? keep my mind thinking abstractly for as long as possible will
Yeah.
ensure that I get a composition right.
That is like on that tutorial video I saw you doing. You also talked about, I guess that's what you're laying down, but you're talking about how the eye moves around the picture
Uh-huh.
as
100%.
well. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're into a face, and then you got drawn to the hand and the other hand, and
Yes.
and that's part of what you're doing now, isn't it?
It's absolutely what I'm doing now. It's a great thing that you're bringing this up because I don't always remember all the stuff that I need to be saying. But yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is like this. Let me pause so that I can make this a better explanation. What I'm asking myself when I'm trying to copy something is not just what is my eye seeing? Oh, it's seeing a face with a nose, with some eyes. No, I'm asking myself a very strange question that sounds something like, how does my eye move across this surface? What is the way that it's traveling? And I'm answering myself, it's like, oh, okay. Like the first thing I go to is like here, it's really dark over here, which is so smart of Rubens. It's dead center, dead center. It's like, boom, he put here a dark accent next to a light accent, prime contrast next to red, saturated area. This area is jam-packed with good abstract material to draw your eye in. So I'm like, I'm right here. Then I can travel in two directions. I can travel over here or I can travel over there. So here we have this light moment, and then here we have this light moment. And now as I'm looking at it, I'm identifying that my painting has this light moment being a little too small. Like the balance between the forehead and the beard is currently out of balance. Like this needs a little bit more real estate. And I'm only judging that because I'm looking at whatever it is that I'm painting as an abstract arrangement of shapes and colors and values. And that's a kind of vision that, it's not there just for you to copy Rubens. It's there for you to paint your own paintings. Like when you go out and you paint the landscape, you're asking yourself, like, what is my eye doing? It's like, oh, I'm drawn to this tree. And then immediately I'm drawn to that mountain. And then I'm seeing this bush. How can I make it so that this is the area of focus, this is the secondary area of focus, this is the third, and make sure that I put something in between those three elements to create a movement back and forth. After the bush, I want back to the tree. So I gotta move my brush sideways so that I push my eye back. You wanna create a visual magnet that nobody can stop looking away. Like, make it impossible. A trap for the eye.
Yeah, it's and that's part of what I was saying as well. Not, it's, there's so many things that go into making a painting have that wow factor.
Yep.
And that's part of it as well. So it's a composition. It's the how your eye is tracking through that image.
Uh-huh. 100%. 100%. These things are absolutely critical if you're gonna make a painting that has a wow factor. You're not gonna get that if you don't think about those things. Just no way. If you're only worried about, oh, how do I realistically paint a nose, game over. Game over. Not good enough. Not good enough, not interesting enough. I say that as a realist painter, I know that's not good enough. You need to have a good abstract design underneath, or else, this whole thing's kind of dead in the water.
Yeah.
So at this point in my underpainting, I would tell you that all the stuff I'm going to be doing next are going to be kind of small adjustments over this big structure that's already working sufficiently for me. And I would encourage you to start working on your underpainting. However, it looks like your underpainting is not going to work. Is that correct? What do you think?
Want me to see if that...
Try to see what happens if you can erase and move. Make a dark mark and let's see together how erasable it is.
So start with this round kind of brush.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay. All right, let's see what happens here.
Yeah, and be bold. Don't be afraid.
All right, I'll try.
A lot of solvent and a
Oh,
lot of
maybe
guts.
it's gonna work, hey? No, I don't know, maybe. I have to work pretty hard to get that thing to move. No, that's do you know what? I might have, can I run away and come back in just 2 minutes? I might have some proper oil paint.
Yeah, go check.
Use up. I'll go check. I'll be back.
No problem.
Hey.
Did you find any?
I'm back, but I don't have the right colors. I've got cadmium yellow, naphthol crimson, I've got purple, I've got green,
Wait,
blue, yellow.
you're saying you have purple. What purple?
It just says purple.
Okay. How about we do an experiment? Are you open to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Grab the purple and the naphthol yellow and mix them on the palette.
Okay. I don't know what color this is. It doesn't look purple here, but
Do you have a palette knife to mix them with?
I do.
Good. So you're going to want a majority of yellow and just a bit of purple in it.
Okie doke.
And if I'm going to get greedy and ask if there's a way to see your palette, I could really guide you through this.
Okay. The purple looks brown.
Well, good. That's a good start. How did that turn out? Do we have a brown?
It's green.
So add some red.
Red.
You have a crimson?
Yep.
Put some crimson in there.
It's looking a bit more brown.
Let me see. Now, this is going to look like an umber, but it's not going to dry as fast as an umber.
Okay. Oh, yeah, of course. Wow. See, I've learned so much in a very short amount of time, Ken.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make people into painters. That's my goal.
That's so cool. I'm so excited. It's awesome.
I'm happy you're liking it.
Yeah, I am actually. It's good.
Oh, how does that look? That's doable, right?
I think that is a great color. It's going to be interesting.
That's doable. Yeah, give it a shot. So now you're going to be seeing the benefit of having put down an imprimatura before. Because if this surface started as white, I would not have been able to do what I'm about to do right now. Because this would take the fact that these light areas of the face, they're light in relation to the shadow, but they're not light per se because they've been painted brown. So now I have a lot of options with regards to what I can do with a light color. That's what I want to do as an oil painter. I want this option. Boom. See that?
Yes.
I want this. I can't live without this. That's what the imprimatura allows me to do, to make white marks that leave an impact. Super critical. See how I'm going to build that forehead with very minimal effort. I'm just putting that light in there, and I'm taking this opportunity to get that shape to be as strong as it can be. Boom, forehead's in there. See that?
Wow.
No work. No work. And this is due to the imprimatura being there. Otherwise, I couldn't have done it. You know, if it wasn't a midtone, then I would have no ability to express the lights, and I want to be able to express the lights. So let's briefly get all those lighter areas in there. And I'm again looking at at the general abstract shapes, trying to model them, not getting into too much detail. As I was working with the darks, now I'm working with the lights, getting my design to be more refined. I couldn't really do that with the eraser. It wasn't accurate enough. So now I really have the opportunity to nail this. Shape of the nose goes lower over here than I previously had it. See that? Really able to model all these tiny things that before it was just too clumsy. Da, da, da.
That's another good word to use, isn't it? You know,
What do you mean? Which word? I don't know what I said.
clumsy. Sorry, that
Oh yeah.
clumsy. It's just like what you're doing now is just giving it instant refinement.
Right. Right.
It's.
But it is only able to do so because I kept the previous stage so simple, you know, and now it's so clear how what I did before is rewarding me.
It's really exciting.
Now I'm gonna grab a bigger brush for this one. Which one am I gonna take? I'm gonna take this. Here, notice that. That's gonna be fun. Very big brush, big impact.
Yeah, wow.
Just, again, keeping it very loose, very painterly. It's carrying so much weight with so little effort, you know? That's your reward for keeping your underpainting simple and for getting your imprimatura to a good midtone so that you can work with both directions, the lights and the darks.
Yes.
Immediately it pops. It's so
Exactly.
satisfying. And everything that needs to stay a midtone, I just don't touch it, you know? So now I have areas that I touched with white, areas that I touch with the dark, and a lot of areas that I'm just not gonna touch. This light over here, the side of the hair, right there. Now I'm gonna have to get this, oops, what's going on here? I have some contamination of dark on my brush, so I'm gonna wipe it clean. And grab some lighter color to get that highlight on the shoulder. Immediate impact. That's what the old masters were about. Give me a technique that solves my problems fast. See what I'm doing there in the hair now? Adding that little detail.
Yep.
That's fun, and I can only do that with the whites. I couldn't really do that with the eraser. Now I'm tempted to kind of go into the eyes, but I know that would be a bad move because everything here is really wet. And I'm 100% sure that I can get it done better once this is dry. So that's the reason why I'm holding back on that, even though it's extremely tempting. And like, I know I could do an okay job, but I want to do more than okay. So I'm going to get this highlight in here. And notice, as I'm doing that, this is a really good opportunity to study Rubens's brush marks. How is he moving his brush? I'm already on the lookout when I start working with the underpainting. As I said before, investigating. I'm looking, oh, how does he move? How does he move his hand? And that's part of the stuff that later, after having done many master copies, you carry into your own work. Because later, when you have to paint somebody with a curly hair in a similar lighting scenario, you're going to be like, oh, Rubens did that movement with the brush and it really, you know, pulled it all together. So you're going to be learning all these techniques that later you can use for your own practice, which is really the point at the end of the day, to be able to paint the stuff you want to paint.
Yeah. And that's a whole other subject as well, I guess, is how you're using your brush.
Well, it's a different subject, but not by as much as you think. This is something that's going to have to come together. The reason that we haven't been discussing it so far, because as we said, underpainting is closer to drawing than it is to painting, and that's why texture is not playing a big role, which is why we are not paying a lot of attention to how necessarily we are using our brush, but very, very soon it's going to have to make an appearance. Like, we have to discuss it. It's a huge part of painting. nobody's going to be able to properly learn painting without having a lot of consideration about how to make proper marks with a brush. That's mandatory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is it's kind of working. It's at a point where if I wanted to continue this next time, I would be set up for success. Just get that mark over there. The only reason I can't get it perfect is now that everything is so wet, every mark I'm making is spreading. You know,
Yeah.
it's like dancing all over the place. And next time when it's dry, that's gonna not happen. And I'm gonna really be able to sharpen everything up and get those proportions to be accurate as I want them.